Sad breaking news tonight in the Kate Steinle murder case. The illegal immigrant, Garcia Zarate, who killed Kate Steinle on that pier in San Francisco, was acquitted just a short time ago of murder and manslaughter charges before he shot Steinle. Now, get this. He was released from a San Francisco jail despite a federal request that he be held for his 6th deportation. He already had 7 prior felony convictions. Let me tell you something the mainstream media will never tell you tonight. It was San Francisco's sanctuary city policies that killed Kate Steinle. They did not obey the law. They followed these ridiculous liberal policies, and because of their stupidity and their, quote, form of justice and caring more about the rights of illegal convicted felons, tonight Kate Steinle is dead and her family has received no justice. Here's the attorney for the illegal immigrant right after the verdict, taking a shot at the president? Really?
For those who might criticize this verdict, there are a number of people that have commented on this case in the last couple of years. The Attorney General of the United States, the President and Vice President of the United States. Let me just remind them that they are themselves under investigation by a special prosecutor in Washington, D.C., and they may themselves soon avail themselves of the presumption of innocence and the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And so I would ask them to reflect on that before they comment or disparage the result in this case.
I want to go through some of the details tonight, and we pay very close attention here. Now, this family of the Steinle family has been waiting more than 2 years for this justice. Now, Kate Steinle, she was arm in arm with her father on that pier. Here you have a guy, homeless at the time, claimed he found the gun with a piece of cloth under his swivel chair at a pier. And then he says he picked it up. He accidentally fired it. It ricocheted and hit Kate Steinle in the back. Well, we know a lot more about Mr. Zarate, and that is, in fact, that because he had little experience with his guns, is what his attorney was saying. But we did find out some other facts tonight. For example, he had been requested by the federal government that, in fact, he be handed over to federal authorities. They didn't do it. The reason they didn't do it is because of the sanctuary city laws that are in San Francisco. The same laws now that have been adopted by the governor of California, Jerry Brown, in this particular case. You look at his track record. You look at all of the deportations. You look at all of the felony convictions. Tonight, America has to ask a very important question. Tell us what good comes out of a sanctuary city law. People that never respected our laws and our sovereignty come into this country again and again and again and again and again, 6 times after being deported, after all those felonies, and an American young woman is killed with her father walking on a pier in San Francisco? We're going to have a lot more. Michelle Malkin joins us in a minute.
Shock and outrage, to say the very least, flooding the country over the verdict in the Kate Steinle case. An illegal immigrant who was deported 5 times, found not guilty by a jury in the sanctuary city of San Francisco. Not guilty. Jackie Banez joins us now live with reaction that is reigniting a national debate. Good morning, Jackie.
Hey, good morning, Heather. Well, the verdict not only shocking but heartbreaking. The illegal immigrant responsible for Kate Steinle's death was found not guilty of murder and not guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Why? Because the defense claimed it was an accident, saying Jose Zarate didn't mean to shoot Steinle on a San Francisco pier back in 2015. Instead, the gun, which had been stolen from a Bureau of Land Management agent's car, went off by itself when he picked it up. Prosecution's argument? Zarate was playing his own version of Russian roulette, shooting Steinle, who was walking the pier with her father on purpose.
The verdict that came in today was not one we were hoping for. This really is about the Steinle family. They've shown incredible resolve during this whole process, and our hearts go out to them.
Now, whether the gun went off by accident or on purpose, one thing is clear. The case is a symbol of a broken immigration system. At the time of the shooting, Zarate had 7 prior felony convictions and was wanted for his 6th deportation. But the sanctuary city refused to follow the law by not turning him over to ICE, instead releasing him back into the streets, allowing him to shoot and kill an innocent woman who died in her father's arms. Kate's brother telling a local station the system failed Kate from the start of the chain of events. President Trump calling the verdict disgraceful, tweeting this: "No wonder the people of our country are so angry with illegal immigration." Zarate's defense lawyer politicizing the verdict and accused of rubbing salt on the wound while taking a shot at President Trump. Listen.
Before you start tweeting or commenting on this outcome, just reflect on the fact that all of us get these protections. We get, a right to a jury. We get these burdens of proof. And, we have to respect that a jury that spent this much time on this case, got it right.
Zarate was convicted of being a felon in possession of a firearm, which carries a sentence between 16 months and 3 years in prison. But immigration officials say they will deport Zarate back to Mexico for the 6th time. Heather?
Yeah, for a 6th time, so he can come back in for a 6th time. All right, thank you so much, Jackie. We appreciate it.
With Reaction Now, host of Michelle Malkin Investigates. Michelle Malkin, you look at all of this in detail, all of this here. This guy, 6 deportations he was facing. The federal government said to San Francisco, turn this guy over, and they refused to obey the law.
Sean, my outrage is laden with melancholy because I have reported and investigated on so many of these cases over the last 25 years, and there has been so little, if any, accountability for people in the federal, state, and local government who have blood on their hands. Kate Steinle and her family never wanted or wished for the publicity that they've gotten, the pain that they've suffered, and the fact that they have no choice but to be front and center in the headlines as they suffer as a result of this verdict. This really is, I think, a damning indictment of so-called San Francisco values. Where is Nancy Pelosi tonight? Where has she been for the last 25 years? This is her city, and it is her open borders policies that have haunted so many innocent people and innocent lives in San Francisco. And it is the conversion of America into a sanctuary nation instead of a sovereign nation that has endangered us. And it is one of the primary reasons that President Trump was elected in the first place, because people made a choice after seeing this fork in the road, after seeing both political parties, Sean, both Republicans and their big business donors and Democrats and their identity politics grievance mongers who don't care about the rule of law in this country, and the collusion between those two things that have created sanctuary policies and a sanctuary nation that still exists to this day. When will the city and county sheriff in San Francisco and that mayor and the governor ever be held accountable for the deaths as a result of bloody open borders? He
spent much of his life, adult life, behind bars. 6 times, as I said, he was going to be taken out. He actually said once he had aimed at a sea animal. He said another time that it fired when he stepped on it. I've been a pistol marksman since I'm 11 years old. Guns do not go off by themselves. There can be accidental shootings, a sea animal, and then you change your story. Here, there's a word for that. That's called lying. That's called,
yes.
They're not even close to being the same story.
That's right. It strains credulity, the story that the defense attorney told. And let me get back to him in a moment with his comments after the verdict, which were absolutely disgusting, some of which you showed. But the idea that he simply happened upon this weapon and it was, oopsie, an accident, when there were witnesses that testified at the trial that they saw him twirling the gun around recklessly beforehand and then scurrying away when the police were looking for who it was that caused Kate Steinle to fall to the ground and be shot in the back when she was, as you said, walking arm in arm with her father on a happy day. The idea that this defense attorney now is politicizing this verdict and rubbing salt into the wounds of Kate Steinle's family, it's disgusting. And it shows you the mentality, I think, that probably infected much of the jury. Did you know, Sean, that any discussion of immigration policy and Jose Zarate's 5 prior deportations, the detainer that was ignored by city and county officials, the pending 6th deportation, the 7 felony convictions, including 4 narcotics convictions, none of that was allowed to be presented to the jury. No wonder they ended up with the verdict they did.
All right, Michelle Malkin, the federal government had requested, and thank you for your time tonight.
Well, with reaction to this verdict, Mark Stein joins us tonight. This does, I mean, it just reminds you of a verdict 20 years ago in a case that was equally politicized, the O.J. Simpson murder trial, where the defense attorneys made it a referendum on larger injustice in American society. I want to read you a quote from one of the lawyers representing this man, in my view, is clearly a murderer, was just acquitted, as we're reporting. He said, and I'm quoting now, "This case is used to foment hate, division, and a program of mass deportation." So really, it sounds like this whole thing was recast as a political statement rather than a murder trial. So that, I mean, that's kind of the end of justice, isn't it? I mean, if trials can be subverted by national politics, then there's no hope for justice, right?
Well, I think it is a miscarriage of justice in the profoundest sense, in that Kate Steinle is dead because she went for a walk in a popular destination in her own city, and her parents will never see anybody convicted for that crime. There's no dispute. I mean, this is slightly different from the O.J. case, where at least he pretended to be looking for the real killers for the last 20 years. There's no dispute that this guy actually fired the shot or picked up the gun that then shot itself, and that this gunshot killed Kate Steinle. And there's no dispute either that this man should not have been in the country, that in fact he had been deported 6 times. And to go back to the old line, you know, about the jobs Americans won't do, every society has a proportion of murderers. Murder is a job that Americans will do, just as Dutchmen will do or Slovenes will do. You don't need to import foreigners to add to your murder population. No, this guy had a grade 2 education. We're told that the reason he got off is apparently because he's too stupid to understand what the cops were saying to him. So he gave conflicting answers about treading on the gun, finding the gun, firing at sea lions. He didn't understand. Why are we importing, and why is one political party, the entire bureaucracy, and 2/3 of the remaining political party fetishizing and sentimentalizing immigrants who can't speak the language with a grade 2 education, and setting up competing jurisdictions in this country that protect them at the expense of American citizens?
Right. Well, because they provide lower wages and handy voting blocks for those parties. So, but there's a massive cost, as you're pointing out, and as our viewers, of course, are well aware. This case gave rise to Kate's Law, as you know, much debated. But the reason it did was because the San Francisco authorities let this guy go, even after being asked by the feds to hold him for deportation. Right. They refused. So I guess it all adds up to a picture of not just, you know, treating illegal immigrants as you would American citizens, but giving them, in effect, better treatment, special privileges because they're here illegally. I don't know. I can't. It's very hard to imagine that an American citizen in Zarate's position would have been acquitted on all these charges.
No, this is basically a lifelong career criminal, and the justification for letting him go is that there's no evidence of violent crime, just non-violent crime. But the very term sanctuary city is designed to shut down the argument, because who do you give sanctuary to? You give sanctuary to refugees, to those fleeing injustice. How can there be something called a sanctuary city if it was holding up a place for criminals to hold up? The very term is designed to shut down the debate. And the reason Donald Trump is president is because he declined to operate with those constraints. Most of the other Republican nominees 2 years ago, the Jeb Bushes and Lindsey Grahams and all the rest of it, were cowed by that kind of language, by Sanctuary City and all the rest of it. And Donald Trump, in fairness, recognized. I mean, I weep for Kate Steinle's parents tonight. I do not know how I could go on living in that city if, God forbid, my daughter were to be shot by someone who should never have been in the country in the first place, and is actually being protected by the entire bureaucracy, political, media class of the country at the expense of American citizens.
That's exactly right. Really quickly, it's hard to imagine now, but 2 years ago when this happened, the behavior of the city of San Francisco, allowing this guy to go free in the face of requests from the feds to hold him, that was denounced by Hillary Clinton in the middle of the presidential race. Things have changed so much in 2 years in the Democratic Party. I wonder how many Democratic office holders will criticize his verdict tomorrow.
Yeah, and if you remember, Bernie Sanders championed American citizens and American workers. It's not going to be that way in the 2020 campaign. They've moved just in 2 years.
Pretty stunning. Mark Stein, thank you for that perspective.